Hello! So for this week's video I find myself on Newburn Bridge in the vicinity of Newcastle because I've come down this Saturday to support my girlfriend who is rowing in the Tyne Head meet. She's a recreational rower. Yeah, and there's a competition today, so I thought for something a little bit different in this week's video I'd do a bit of a personal profile on a recreational athlete that's close to me, so that will form the basis of today's video. So I am stood on this bridge with the finish line directly in sight. Behind me is back up the river, which is the direction from which she'll be coming, due to set off in just a short while. So yeah, really excited because I haven't seen a race since last summer. And up there now, just beyond the safety boat, you can see the first crews coming down for this afternoon session. I haven't done my homework, so yeah, I absolutely don't know at what point my girlfriend's crew will be coming down, and I realised that I'm not going to be able to identify them until they get a lot closer up. We've got the first boats now coming into a lot closer view. They're seeming to be sticking to the right hand side of the river and then yeah, forking leftwards. Not quite sure what is the logic behind that, but I'm sure that there is some strategic reason for it. But yeah, good to experience this for the first time. I may have erred there with that little tactical quit, because I'm not sure if the finish line is a little bit up the river where the boats are. They're seemingly coming straight down the right hand bank and then yeah, drifting off into the middle. So yeah, not quite sure where the finish line is, or if it's further up and then moving on to their boathouses. These lot here on the right hand side seem to be doing packing up the boats. So I'm just going to go have a little gander down the river to see what's going on. Bit of a better vantage point from the finish line.
Okay, so I now have my lovely girlfriend Henrietta here in the studio for a bit of a debrief after that event. So first off, lovey, please can you tell us what the event was?
It was the much delayed Rutherford Head race from 2021, which is now taking place in 2022, and it takes place on the Tyne Waterway up in Newcastle. It's a 4K race, and I was in Division 2, which was starting at 2 o'clock. So yeah, that's what we were up to.
And can you just give everybody watching a little bit of an insight as to why it was delayed from November?
Essentially the weather. There was snow, there was wind, and it was utterly foul, and people didn't think it would be safe to race, so we pushed it back. The weather was not that much better this time, but you know, you had to kind of sit up into the conditions and just do your best.
Perfect. And yeah, so what event were you racing in? Yeah, rowboat wise, I don't confess to know a lot about rowing. I've only just found out about the various types of discipline.
You're doing very well.
Yeah, since. But yeah, tell us more about the race.
Okay, so yeah, as I said already, it was a 4K course. I was in the Leeds Rowing Club Women's 8, a very lovely Hudson. And yeah, it was my first proper head race that I've ever done. And so that was new and exciting. I previously only ever raced in a double before, and I used to get really bad nerves at the start, mainly because I was at stroke, so it would be my role to sort of get moving, and then my colleague, my partner Jenny behind me would get going after me, so there was always the pressure of, if I don't move, we're not going anywhere. So I was in seat 3 this time, which made it a lot less stage frighty for me, which was definitely an improvement. And also we do rolling starts in head races. It's different from regattas where you all start at the start line and get told to go. So I felt pressure-wise it was a nice change. Being in seat 3 means that I am in the engine room of the boat. Seats 6, 5, 4 and 3 are where the large amounts of power come from. And it's a seat I really enjoyed. As I said earlier, the conditions were awful. There was a really strong wind and the tide was against us, and it was incredibly choppy, which is very difficult to row in. But it was a matter of sort of engaging a core, sitting up, and really trying to do chunky rowing to battle the conditions. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so just a few things that came out of that answer there. So please, could you elaborate on what is a head race?
So a head race is, unlike regattas where it's probably about 6 boats all setting off at the same time, side by side, a head race is a line of boats, one going after the other. And it's more based on time rather than who can finish fastest. So in some ways, there's less pressure because you don't have, 5 boats around you who you can see and you're trying to race them. But in other ways, it's quite, mentally, it's quite challenging because you don't have the competition driving you on. And so it's really down to the cocks to try and, because it's such a long race, it's 4K, and other races are sometimes 5, even 7K. It's really up to the cocks to maintain the momentum and really inspire the boat to sort of really keep the aggressive, the aggression on during the race when you don't have the pressure of other boats around you. There is of course scope to overtake boats in head races, and we did in this one, but that's not always a guarantee. So yeah, that's what a head race is.
Lovely. And so you described what number 3 meant,
Yeah.
and the engine room of the boat, but could you just tell us what stroke means?
Sorry, sitting at stroke is you are at the end of the boat. So it's quite an important job because you decide the rate that the rest of the boat is going to do, because everybody follows you. So Lucy, who was at stroke on Saturday, it was up to her to decide how, to set the pace that we were going to do at, and she's got to maintain it, which is very difficult, and she did a marvellous job.
Lovely. And by the end of the boat, do you mean the front or the back?
The bow.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, sorry. The stern of the boat is where
Perfect.
stroke seats, and then bow seat is in the bows.
Wonderful. And yes, you alluded to the weather there being very difficult, being rather windy and blustery conditions,
Yeah.
amongst other things. How did you get on in said conditions?
Well, as I said, it's very important to sit up into the wind as much as possible. It's also important, usually we're encouraged to square our blade early when we row, but in conditions like that actually makes it more dangerous. So what you square the blade before you put it into the water as late as you can in conditions like that, in order to help boat stability. It's also really important to keep your movements quite deliberate, quite strong, because you've got the wind fighting you, and also you've got the big waves. And I think also it's just best to be as adaptable as you can because of how hard the weather is. I mean, I caught a crab, and you have to just not panic and just keep moving, so as not to sort of hold the boat up or cause any further problems.
Okay, so just off the back of that one, what do you mean by catching a crab?
Catching a crab is when you place your blade in the water incorrectly, and you aren't able to take a proper stroke. Depending on the seriousness of it, you can snap a blade. Mine was not very serious, and I rectified it quite quickly. But it just means that the stroke you take is not very good, and it can sometimes upset the balance of the boat. And the best thing to do at times like that is to try and stay quite loose, not get rigid, just work with the blade to get it out of the water and get starting again on another stroke.
Lovely. And so, were you happy with how you got on in this race?
As it was our first head race, it was mainly just a learning curve for me because I'd never done one before, and it was a really useful one. And I think, again, it was quite good to know that we could go out in difficult weather and we could cope with it well. So yeah, it was a really good learning curve for me, and an experience I thought was really, really useful.
Wonderful. Okay, and so you know, we've had an event that was supposed to be in November but took place instead in February. What other events have you got coming up, and sort of what does the end result of this race mean for you going forward and into those other events?
Well, the next event is next weekend. It's at Nottingham Trent Head, so we'll be going there. It's a longer course, it's 5.5k. There will then be, the weekend after that, we are going to York for York Head, which again will be really exciting, and to the final race of Head of the River in London on the 12th of March, which is 7k, so yeah, a lot more mileage. But I think we can take confidence in the fact that, you know, we've done our first race of the season, we've done it in really hard conditions, and just, yeah, put the work forwards to the longer races.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely. So thank you to you for agreeing to do this with me. Yeah, it took a while before we got sat down after quite a long, arduous week. It's a nice Sunday now where we both feel rested to come and do this. So thank you very much, Lovey, for doing it with me.
My pleasure.
And thank you for you guys for watching. If you've enjoyed, please like the video, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and on Facebook, please click on my face and head on over to my page and give it a like and a follow so that you don't miss out on any more of my future content. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week.